What's the difference between SRAM's new transmission drivetrains? SRAM have just released a cheaper model of their new transmission, which is in fact 38% cheaper than their top-of-the-line XX model. But is it 38% worse?
Have SRAM just cannibalised their existing high-end drivetrain?
So this is SRAM's XX. The drivetrain cost is £1,800, or similar in dollars. So SRAM's XO is £1,400. And SRAM's new GX transmission is £1,125. I've got quite a lot of ride time on both the XX and the XO, but I'm quite intrigued to find out how the GX performs in comparison. So there's a big difference in the pricing between their top end and their entry-level drivetrain. But looking at them, they look really similar. So in this video, I want to find out what the actual difference is. And is this one worth the premium? Or is it worth saving 38% and getting SRAM's new GX level transmission? Now, I've been riding these two pretty much exclusively over the past few months. I honestly cannot tell a single difference in the performance of these two drivetrains, the XX and the XO. In fact, looking at them in front of me, they are virtually identical. The only difference I can see is a slight material difference, which makes the XX look a little bit more premium. I think the brushed steel and the black and the silver work really well, just aesthetics. But I think that these are virtually identical products. The motors in them are the same, the electronic servos and the switch gear is the same, the way they mount is identical. So 464 grams for the more expensive one, 476 grams for the XO. It's what, 12 grams heavier, which is nothing. And GX is 491 grams. Like, yeah, it's like virtually the same again. I actually think it looks pretty cool. I don't think it looks cheap at all. I think it looks quite premium compared to the XO, but there are some differences now. We start to see a slightly different construction. The vital things with the motor and the electronics, they are the same. The shifting performance, I think, again, is going to be very, very similar.
So I've got to say, I would not tell the difference again if I was blindfolded. The only thing I think is the Cassette has a slight different resonance to the gear change. I know that sounds really like bizarre to say, but after probably 2,000 miles out of XX and XO, I think the gear change has a slight, ever so slight different sound.
Now where it gets interesting as well is the actual cassettes, because again, I think it's actually the same product. I think these two cassettes are the same, other than the obvious difference in colour. Both look beautifully milled out of a single piece of metal. Let's take a look. What's this one weigh? 382 grams. And this one weighs 381 grams, like 1 gram difference. These two, I think, are identical. This is where things start to become a bit more apparent. Now, this is plated with a nickel coating, which SRAM say helps longevity. I can feel this one is slightly heavier. And this one here is like single milled piece of steel. And this one here is pinned together. So there's definitely going to be a difference in the weight. 445 grams. So again, not a huge amount. There's a difference in the crank arm. The XX crank arm is carbon and the XO crank arm is aluminium. So there's definitely going to be a weight difference. 193 versus 245. So what's that? 50 something grams? But not a huge amount, maybe 100 grams in a complete set. So if you are very weight conscious, this is going to be slightly lighter. The crank arms, I think, are actually the same product. They do look identical, just the way that they're painted looks different. This is grey and this is black and grey, but the kind of concaved section looks like it is exactly the same at that angle there, you can see. And in fact, I do think this is the same product. I think this is identical. 244 grams 244 grams. It's the same, isn't it? Come on, that's identical. So if you're going to buy the crank arms, unless you are really against grey, just get the grey, the GX. It's the same as the XO. There's no difference at all. It's slightly different. This is a hollow pin chain. It's actually hollow. The pins through there, you can see right through there. And these have regular kind of riveted style pins, which this is just going to save weight. So it's going to be slightly lighter, 250 grams versus 287 grams, 281 grams, sorry. So silver looking chain, 283 grams. Basically, it's going to be the same product, just with a different color on it. The battery orientation goes up here. So now they've changed the battery to go on top, just there, instead of to the side, as we have on the XO. Feels like there's a little bit more plastic on the GX, but still works in the same way. If you damage it, you can take this cage off, you can replace this if you bend it, which I have in fact. I've already bent one of these and I needed to buy a replacement cage, but that exists across the entire line of the products. You can still do that. But let's be honest, we like upgrading bikes. Well, certainly I do anyway, but if we can get a drivetrain that performs as good as a £1,800 drivetrain, but actually pay £1,125, then we've hit that kind of sweet spot in that performance to value ratio.
Actually, maybe the more I shift, the more the sound is the same. If I didn't have a different drivetrain on, if I hadn't put it on myself, I wouldn't know. I would not have shifted and thought, oh, that sounds different. It's because, you know, when you're listening for things to be different, it's basically what I'm doing, but I'm trying to find us differences between these drivetrains, and I'm trying to be able to articulate what it is. Other than the looks and the massive price difference, I'm really struggling to find out, performance-wise, what is different. Obviously, there's differences in weight, but we're talking grams, you know? We're not talking 300-400 grams. We're talking 10, 20, 30 grams, and a little bit more on the cassette.
So we want something that is really good performance, but we want decent value. So here's where I think they all map out. XX here, because the value is a lot of money, but the performance is really good. And XO is basically the same as far as I can tell in performance. It doesn't have that magic wheel thing that the XX does on the derailleur, but so I say these are both identical. So this is where it gets super interesting. Where does GX map on this chart? Now in my testing, I can't see much difference at all in the performance, honestly, unless you are looking for that super low weight. I don't care on an e-bike. There's just not enough weight saving to be any noticeable difference whatsoever. Doesn't look quite as premium as the XX, but honestly, that makes no difference to performance whatsoever. Longevity, SRAM say that they put some specific coatings on the XO black chain. Will it make a massive difference? I'm not too sure. But in just outright performance on the trail, shift in under load, when you really need to use that gear and you just want it to shift and be clean and crisp. It is so close, near identical in shifting performance. I'd say it's identical, but in terms of value, bang for buck, you are getting 99% of the performance of the really expensive XX transmission for a fraction of the cost.